as Americans, we have every right, and I believe that every member of Congress and the Senate should be just as patriotic about our arts as they are about so many other issues that they're enormously patriotic about. I think that arts and culture are a necessity in our lives, not just as individuals, but as nations. I think that it's about our spirit and our health. It's about how much we expose young people to arts education, to music and to poetry and to theater and to ballet. And this isn't about people who want to go into the arts. This is about what it does to people's sense of confidence, to people's sense of self-esteem, to what they can learn about themselves. I mean, you go back through the huge swath of extraordinary leadership we've had on this issue, really from Lincoln. You know, I think I mentioned last night that a lot of people, of course, know about the tragic death of President Lincoln at a theater, but we know little about how much he actually attended the theater during his presidency in the worst days of the Civil War. He attended the theater constantly because Lincoln understood that he needed the arts to replenish his soul. He craved for poetry. You look at some of his extraordinary presidential speeches and you hear the rhythms of Shakespeare and the Bible, which he memorized as a young child he couldn't see live performance. He was exactly the kind of kid that arts programs in this country would have wanted to reach. And so I tried last night in the Nancy Hanks lecture to make an argument about embracing arts and culture. It, in my opinion, is the most important export that we exchange around the world. Countries may go to war, but it's culture that unites us. It educates us. It teaches us to be better. So the idea that somehow this, quite frankly, small amount of $167 million, which, while that isn't a huge amount of money, what people have to understand is that there is then matching state funding and other kinds of money that comes in, and it actually escalates to about $1 billion, maybe even a little bit over $1 billion in terms of the amount of funding for arts that goes out across the country. And then the return on that investment, and this is something that I think a lot of people in the country aren't aware of, is $29 billion come back into the coffers of the state and local governments. So it is a huge return on that kind of investment. Cultural center. It brings economy to all the surrounding businesses. I mean, if you go to any place in this country where there's a ballet company or a theater or a jazz club or a comedy store, any place people gather, it brings economy to all the surrounding businesses. The restaurants are filled. And by the way, the airlines are filled because, as many people probably don't know, the single largest money-making tourist attraction in the United States is Broadway. So our culture is what brings people to the United States. They want to share it, they want to experience it, and we send it all over the world. I mean, that's the wonderful thing about culture, is that it doesn't know borders. It doesn't understand when it's crossed a border and had an impact on someone in another state or in another country around the world.
Do you think the Republicans, at least the right-wingers who are pushing this, know that what would Boston be like without the symphony? What would Philadelphia be without the Philadelphia Orchestra? What would a downtown be without its museums and its performing arts? It wouldn't be cities anymore. We don't have cities for downtown shopping anymore. The cities exist in America today, mainly not because to go shop there anymore like we used to do on Wednesday afternoon or what. You know what I mean? The reason you have New York now is because the culture, because of Broadway. The reason Philly has a downtown, or even what survives in Detroit has a downtown, is because of the culture.
Look, I don't think that we could accuse any member of Congress, no matter what side of the aisle they're on, of not being lovers of music and poetry and beauty and grace and what the arts give to our country. This is a fundamental issue about ideology, and it's an issue about whether they believe that the government should have a role in supporting arts and culture. And I say, look back at the history of mankind. Look at the fact that on the continent of Europe, they've been supporting arts for a very, very long time. I mean, princes commissioned Mozart and Michelangelo. Joseph I built the first great opera house in Vienna. Germany nurtured music and theaters. Look how much money they spend in Italy. And even the cuts that we've experienced in Great Britain. Great Britain adopted the idea that the arts, like healthcare and education and Social Security, are universal goods that ought to be available regardless of people's ability to pay.
Tell that story about Winston Churchill you told last night, my hero.
Well, this was a great quote, because as I was preparing for this lecture, I wanted to find a lot of comments that various world leaders and political leaders in the United States had made about the importance of the arts. And apparently when Winston Churchill was prime minister, and he was told that there was going to have to be major cuts in arts and culture because of the mounting costs of World War II, he responded with a simple reply, then what are we fighting for? Every